So they'd stabilised my leg. Apparently there was a conversation in theatre about on or off. They decided on. I think I was Aeromed that night. Back to Blighty. They took the splint off and they hammered a big femoral nail up through your sort of end of your femur to hold it all together. And they said, look, this is a temporary solution just to get you off that splint. The decision you need to make now is leg on or off, because it's 10 centimetres you've lost in bone, which is a big chunk. You only get one pair of legs. By definition, therefore, having one of them taken off is the last thing you get to. So the obvious answer to me was, let's try this reconstruction. So I then was referred to Sheffield to see the specialist, who said, yeah, we can give this a go. So I had a sort of an external fixator, Lazarov fixator fitted. My leg was then broken in two places. In fact, it wasn't to start with. It took so long to fit the fixator, and he had to beat me up around my sort of femur so badly. They said, we can't do the breaks today because it's just too much already. Then I had to go back to have my leg broken, so above and below the entry wound. And that's where they start growing the new bone. They break it there. And then I was issued with a spanner. And I used to turn the screws 4 times a day. So I waited 2 weeks, as I was told, started turning the screws. Turned these screws for 2 weeks, which pulls the bones apart. And that's at a rate of 1 millimetre a day. And that the bone will chase the gap at that point, apparently. Go back to Sheffield from Headley Court. Have my first set of x-rays. And Mr. Dennison, the surgeon, came and he said, the bad news is that you've grown the bone so quickly that in the 2 weeks it took for you to start turning the screws, the breaks had healed over. He said, we can get you in on Sunday night and we'll break them again. So as soon as we discharge you, start turning those screws. So that's what we did. You get to the right length and they essentially just tie the screws up and the whole thing's locked in. And you then wait for the bone to heal. So at the sort of 10-month-ish point, he said, right, it's time for the frame to come off, which I do think was probably the second most unpleasant 15 minutes of my life. The following morning, physio looked at me and she said, you're leaning over more than you were yesterday. That was the start of the bone bending. So I then had to go back in, have my leg broken again through the apex of this break, this bend rather, a new fixator put on, which had one big screw on the outside. And then I had to turn this screw really quickly to get my leg to straighten up. The day I went back for the x-ray and they said, you're there, a wave of relief that I could stop turning this blessed screw. And then I had a leg that was the right length and now straight. The last surgery, which actually did for me physically for a long time, was a quadriplastic, a big zip right down the front of my femur, down over my knee and just the top of my shin, to try and get the range of movement back in my knee. And then before you come out of theatre, you are attached to this machine which bends your leg for you. So I got the bone back to the right length, straightened it all up. Now could bend my leg tonight, which I can to 90 degrees. And then it was full on into Headley Court. I've lost quads that will never come back and various things like that. I've still got 2 legs. I can run, I can ride a bike, I can swim, I can walk around quite normally. The impact on a family of this sort of thing is profound. It absolutely strips to the bare metal, I think, the strength of that family. And it also calls loudly to the network you have around you. And the wider regimental family was just superb. And then our friends and family around us were great. And I wouldn't like to go through that without that support.